Hey, thanks for tuning in. So in this video, I'm showing you how to go about assembling the individual pieces that come included with your purchase of the Eagle armature. And if you purchase this during the Kickstarter campaign, you got a couple other items for free, including the steel platform and rider armature, which you can purchase all on its own for $45. And then the stand itself, which mounts the Eagle, and that one is also available on our storefront for $20. The peanut joint featured on the Eagle is a new design. It doesn't have the screw anymore that you tighten, and so it's much stronger and more reliable. It won't be popping out on you, for example. And the neck is still the same, although the Eagle features an articulated jaw, so it's our first product to have that. If the head ever pops off the neck, it's fairly easy to put back on. Simply put a little support there with your finger behind the joint and press inward, and then you should be able to move it freely again. That said, the base where it connects to the torso is pretty firm, and so sometimes you may have to hold on to the neck itself to have the head make a full rotation if you wanted to. When attaching the wings and the legs, it's a pretty tight fit, so you want to hook on one side and then pull firmly on the other until it reaches the other end, or simply just slide it on until you hear it snap. And once you've done that, make sure that anatomically the joints are oriented the right way. So for example, the leg itself, the humerus at the very top, sorry, not the humerus, the femur, should extend forward, and then the next joint down is the knee, and so that should bend backward, which is the tibia joint. And then the very last bone at the very bottom is the extension of the foot itself, which reaches the talons, and that has the individual claws attached to it. And because the talons themselves are pretty fragile, they're not very thick, and so you want to use a lot of finesse when you control those. But with all these points of articulation, you can pretty much get those legs anywhere you want to. You've got multiple twist joints, and so you can reorient the tibia and you can reorient the foot by simply turning those H joints along their twisting axis. When attaching the wings, the first decision you want to make is which side you want the feathers facing, because one side shows the feathers and another side shows the articulation, which you usually want to try to keep hidden as much as possible. But even before doing that, you also want to pay attention to the orientation anatomically of these bones. So for example, the very first bone is the humerus bone, that's the upper arm, and then the next bone after that is the forearm, and then what remains are the fingers, which in this case are the feathers. There is a twist joint halfway up the forearm so that you can turn that and play with the orientation of the wings themselves. And again, when attaching these, hook on one side and then pull firmly on the other side until it reaches the other end of the torso and snaps in. And once you hear that snap, turn that joint a few times to sort of break into the joint a little bit. And then you can start playing around with the orientation of the joints to get the wing where you want to get it. This might take a little bit of practice because there are so many points of articulation in there. It can at first feel a little bit overwhelming, but once you start playing around with it, you'll start to get a feel for how you need to play with the orientation of the joints to get the wing where you want it to go. Here you can see me playing around with the different points of articulation and trying to get that wing in a place that looks good or makes sense anatomically. And again, this is really just a matter of practice and patience. Now the tail is completely optional, and the reason I made it an optional thing is because it takes up quite a bit of room. So there you saw the first thing I did is spread out the legs so that I have room so that I can press this clip into the bottom of the pelvis. You hook in one side and then press firmly until the other side snaps in, and then bring the legs back down. But even then you'll notice that it takes up quite a bit of room. And so it's up to you whether or not you want to have the tail in there. But if you do keep in mind that it has a limit to its range of motion, and so there you saw me flip it around so that it can rotate backward and move sideways, whereas the way it was oriented before, it would rotate forward and move sideways. But that is not how I would like to pose my bird. I'd rather the tail be able to move backward rather than forward. So once you get it in there, you may find that some of these pieces that are screwed on tight are a little loose. So that's simply a matter of using a Phillips screwdriver or a flathead screwdriver, pressing firmly on the fastener on the opposite side so that it doesn't turn as you twist it, and then tighten it with the screwdriver until you get a fitting that you like. And that's it. Now you've got the whole bird assembled and you can start posing away. Posing it in your hands is probably a really good place to start, because you have to play around with all these points of articulation to figure out how to get the bird to pose, to get into the position you want. And then proceed with mounting it onto the stand so that the stand is not in the way of that iterative process. And bending the stand like that is probably a good way to get some leverage so you can turn it easily and get it to twist onto the back of the Eagle. And then just mount it on something with a sufficient weight to hold the armature. In this case, what I'm attaching it to is not heavy enough, but I'm going to put a weight on it momentarily. Now, what I usually attach these onto bookshelves or desks because they hold the weight really well. And then for the rider, if you got this for free through our Kickstarter, there's a whole other video on how to pose the bipeds, which I would encourage you to watch. But essentially, it's a pretty fun little guy and has magnetic hands and magnetic feet. And you can, of course, pose this and attach him to the Eagle. But before doing so, I would work with the joints, try to get the pose where you want to get it, and then attach it. There I'm showing the exact same thing I showed earlier with the head joint. It's the same design that the Eagle has if it were to come off, and how to go about attaching it back in. So here I'm just posing the rider into like a riding position, and now I'm going to mount him on the Eagle. In order to remove the arms, you kind of have to do it a little bit differently. You latch onto the shoulder and pull it out of the socket, and that releases enough tension so that you can remove the clip itself from the torso or the pelvis if you're removing the legs. Sometimes this is going to be hard to do with your hands, and so you may have to use pliers to be able to grip on tightly enough to pull it off. But the reason I'm showing you this is because if you do own some of our other products, our larger bipeds, you can customize them by borrowing pieces from the Eagle and attaching them to the bipeds, or vice versa. Whenever you buy the wings all on their own, you can get these dual socketed clips, which you can also buy all on their own on our Kits and Bits page. And the point behind these is to have an extra socket so you can attach an arm and attach a wing at the same time, and then proceed with attaching it to the torso. And just like that, you've got an angel. The wings are pretty heavy, and so the magnets might not be strong enough to hold the biped and the wings attached. So I would suggest using the clip mount and attaching it to the back of the biped. So I think that pretty much covers all the different facets of this product. If you have any questions, leave it in the comments or email me at store@digitaldouble.com. I also post regularly on Tumblr. If you go to armature9.tumblr.com, and there's a cool blog that I make frequent posts to as well on our website, armature9.com, which is where you can buy these products. So thanks for watching, and I look forward to hearing from you. Bye.